Hello and welcome to Lights, Camera, Conversations. It's a dialogue between film and new media industry professionals and students of Jindal School of Journalism and Communication and OP Jindal Global University. On this show, we talk about challenges, histories, perspectives. By engaging a one-on-one conversation with people from the industry, I am Sholay Hangover from Jindal School of Journalism and Communication, and joining me today is writer-director Charu Dutt Acharya. Now, Charu Dutt is a graduate of FTII Pune and Royal Holloway University of London, where he was a Charles Wallace Scholar of the British Council. Currently, Charu is working on 2 OTT shows, a book and a feature film script. He lives and works out of Mumbai. Previously, he has written for over 25 TV shows spanning 2 decades. And they include Crime Patrol, Jassi Jaisi Koi Nahi, Siddhant, Dhadkan, Hakikat, and several others. He has co-written films like Dam Maro Dam, Nautanki Salah, and Vastu Shastra. He has also directed and written the feature film Sonali Cable. But he's also the creator of the very popular Aranya. And I must confess that I haven't watched Charu, most of the other stuff, but I watched a little bit of Aranya. That is currently streaming on Netflix. His previous OTT shows are 162, War in the Hills, on Disney Hotstar, and It's Not That Simple on Voot. He also wrote Sleeping Partner, a short film, which is part of the Netflix anthology Zindagi in Short. Welcome to the show, Charu.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so let's start with Aranyak because that's the only thing that I have watched.
Sure.
Lovely to have the leading ladies of yore reimagine themselves and come back. And
Yeah.
It's also got a strong cast. It's got Param Bharata and Ashutosh Rana.
Yeah.
You have combined like 3 genres: thriller, murder, mystery, and sci-fi. Now, how did you think of combining these 3? How did you think that this is going to appeal to the people?
Actually, see, it didn't start off with the idea of combining consciously. When I started off, it actually started off just with the character. So, a couple of years back, I was on a family vacation in Himachal Pradesh, and there I met a cop because of we were having some problem with the ghodawalas who take the horses up the So there was some problem with them. So they were bullying and they were trying to act a little rough. So we went to a police station. So there I met a lady cop actually, who when we went there to make a complaint, she was actually taking up her child's. She had a young girl and she was taking up her homework, and she was also peeling peas. So I didn't, and she wasn't wearing a drab sweater on top. So I actually didn't know that this is a cop. I asked for the cop, and she said, "Yeah, sit." And my wife had got hurt, and so she took her, and a lot of domestic kind of scenario. And then when I started getting a little impatient, I said, can you just call the cops?" She said, "We went to the inspector's room, and she was the cop." And she went and sat on the cop's chair, and then I realized when she took off that sweater that she had these stars, and she was a proper cop.
Mhm.
And then the way she changed and she took those guys to task and helped us, and I was just fascinated by that woman. Like she has a teenage daughter who's sitting in the station, and this woman is taking up her mathematics, and it was a mix of many things. That the day, that beautiful police station, and from there actually I started thinking that I need to do something about a character like this. How do we land on stories? Is sometimes it can be an incident, sometimes it can be many things, but this was purely driven by a character I had met. And her first name was Kasturi, which I just retained. Yeah, just my tribute to that lady, cop. So then, while I was there, we had a driver who was just pulling my children's leg. They were small. So telling that up there in the forest, there lives somebody,
Hmm.
who's like a snow leopard, but he's not a snow leopard.
Okay.
You just you have to kill time. You're going to Rotang, and so he was with a poker face. He was telling the story about this creature. That story I found interesting. And then there was a real life case which had happened not in Himachal but somewhere else. And I used to write Crime Patrol a lot. For 10 years I wrote Crime Patrol. So crime stories come. We have research. And there was one story which had always stuck to me where a crime was done by somebody and then there were three crimes done by three different people to the same person, and none of them were aware about it. They're all done it for different reasons. So somehow in the evening, just you call it an epiphany, or I'm just putting it out there. There was no great planning done or anything. It just mulling over these three stories. Somehow these three, I just thought, what if all these things happen in one place? This involves this element also, that element. It was just like a free flowing thought which I put it out on paper, and just for the heck of it, I developed it, and then we have RNF today. Though it took many years for that, but that's where the germ is.
Okay. And how did who thought about Ravina Tandon out there and Parambrata? I mean, he is
Well,
typically a
casting,
Bengali actor.
yeah, casting is something, it's like we finished. We had almost been a year since we had finished our basic drafts. 8 9 months before we had finished, before we went on floor. So there were many options. I mean, on OTT platform, you want certain amount of traction. You need a star. It's always great if you have some, and a lot of film actors and all are nowadays open to, taking part on in OTT shows. But it's a challenging thing. There's something new to do. So in the course, I have been a big fan of Ravina, because when I was like, she was not with Alia, but to today's generation, for my generation, Ravina was a very iconic actor, star.
Hmm.
So when my producers approached her, she liked the script and she said yes, and that was it. I was very happy. Of course, we had some options. We had been meeting people. All of that was there. But the fact that dates are also an issue all the time because everybody is busy. And she was available. She was very picky. She was spoiled for choice because there were many offers to her. But she liked our script and she really said yes. And then Param happened again. We wanted somebody to have that little sophisticated, brooding quality, and not a very in-your-face, macho kind of guy. We wanted somebody who's a little bit more intelligent, somebody who comes across as also sensitive. It's a silent brooding quality, and Paramkat definitely has that. So he was approached and he said yes, and then just everything fell into place.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now you have a second season, I'm told, of Aranyak. Are there any spoilers that you want to give away?
No, I can't really reveal any spoilers, but it definitely. I mean, our producers have already put it out. One thing that the Paramkat's character is not dead; he's going to be alive. That's for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's going to be Kasturi and Angad and Inspector Madhav Dogra and all of that, all the other characters, and it is going to be that way. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll look forward to it. And now, since
Sure.
I've spoken to you, I will catch the second season right from the beginning when it starts. Now, you obviously the story that you tell me, it's a real story, and you seem to be picking up stories from real life, and I suppose most storytellers do that. They pick up stories from real life. Crime
Yeah.
Control also, I think, has real stories. Is that? But there was a criticism at one point that there was some amount of victim blaming in Crime Patrol.
Yeah,
Would you agree to that?
there was. See, firstly, we don't really take stories. We take a germ. Like for example, Aranyak these are germs taken from real life incident and imagination. But when we were doing Crime Patrol, see, I've not done Crime Patrol for the last couple of years. Before that, for about 7 8 years, I was a co-writer on it. Sometimes I wrote the whole thing. Sometimes mostly I did the dialogues. So, well, at times it could have come across as victim blaming, but there were for a few episodes that must have slipped out on that count. It would have been purely unintentional, but mostly we tried. It was the show which tried to basically the idea was to put out the modus operandi of how a criminal can it was to be a little safe. It was not as much to shame or blame the victim, but to make people aware of the nature of crime and the way criminals operate, so that you can be careful. That was the intention, and that's what most of our episodes tried to address.
Charu, you've written both for films and TV, OTT. Uh, is the writing style different for these platforms, or is it more or less the same?
Hmm. See, the grammar of audiovisual storytelling, be it the writing, the shooting of fiction, of audiovisual fiction, is broadly the same. Broadly, the grammar. How you keep time and space. How do you have characters, you have interplay, you have to play with space and you have to pacing is issue, and all these things are the pillars on which a fictional audiovisual story stands. Having said that, but they are different. I would say uh, they are three different mediums, and this is because of the format and because of the audience and because of the nature of the consumption of the story. Because when we are talking about a feature film, presuming it's going to get a theatrical release. So, firstly, when you're talking about a bigger screen theatrical experience, so in there itself, it add a 2 hour experience and not a longer format experience.
Right.
Then the way you pick your stories for a feature is different. The kind of the stories you pick, it has to sit in that 2 hours. You should be able to tell that kind of story. So the real life time duration of that story, the event, and whether also it has to have a certain high concept, or I mean, not always necessary, but it has to have a certain appeal or a certain draw for a certain kind of visual representation. For us, some people call it scale, some people call it a high concept, or some people call what is something cinematic. What we call it should be cinematic. When we see something on a big screen, you want to see something cinematic. That kind. So the visual is the far more important component, and the dialogue is an embellished. Like it's something that will take the story ahead, it's like a garnish. Television, so what we classically say is show, don't tell, is what primarily is the rule of cinema, of the big screen cinema. But when you are talking about television drama, television shows, it is a lot of much more of dialogue than there is a visual. Because a lot of times television operates in indoors. You have chamber drama, you have soap opera, you have sitcom. All of these elements come in. So, and the budgets are also different. So you don't really go out all out and do the really visual spectacles in television. You might do a piece, you might do once a little bit of in an episode. So a lot of economics also starts playing a role. And the stories that we tell are character driven. In the plots are more drawn out. Like if you take a soap opera, you have one plot that is soap opera or any other kind of longer format, 4 to 5 days a week. So you actually have, it's almost like you are following one day in the life of these characters. One half-an-hour episode is like a day or 2 days at the most in the life of those characters. You stay with them, you mull with them. Kitchen sink drama, politics, this, that. A lot of soaps are more inward looking. They are more to do with internal moods and internal issues that are there between the four walls. But having said that, there is another longer format television, which is the 45-minute slot, which we have like we used to have all our thriller before OTT came in. We had these weekend slots, remember?
Yep.
We still have them. A lot of great television is weekend slots, from your thrillers to drama, all on all genres. Maybe sitcoms have normally been 22, 30 minutes. So these longer formats are closer to the OTT experience, where you are telling like a 45-minute story standalone or on an episode. So it is cinematic at the same time. It is television also, both. It combines elements of both. But what makes OTT again a little different is because your target is to get people to literally seduce them, to literally hold them to binge watch. When a series is binge watched, because you're dropping all 6, 7 episodes at one go. So the commercial success of a show is determined usually by how many people finish that show over the weekend or in one go. The faster the people have binge watched, it shows a larger hold over your audience, and that means it was that much liked by people. Not that OTT show is less successful if it is watched over 5, 6 days. 1 week. Some people do that, like people, especially people from a slightly older generation. Even like for me, example, I might not watch 8 episodes at one go. I might watch 4, then I might just do something else. But youngsters, younger people tend to binge watch more. And OTT is primarily currently targeted towards the younger generation. The 16 to 25, 30 kind of generation. So in the writing, when of an OTT show, you have a larger, you have to create these tracks where the minor tracks, what we call as the B story and the C story and the D story, all of them have to be quite compelling and you have to be hooky. Right now, we are operating on the hook, that you need some twists and turns to come into the story, which will not let your person reach for the remote and switch. You want to hold them. So that's one very, very critical thing, which also determines spacing, which also determines characterization, which determines, because the hook points are like sacrosanct. When one episode rolls into the another, you don't want people to watch something else or to go do something else. You don't want them to go to the loo. You have to hold them. So that's the kind of.
Is the hook mostly revolves around crime? Because most of the recent successful from Patal Lok to various
Right now
others.
it is. Yeah, right now it is. It shouldn't be ideally. But if you observe some of the successful shows that we see on OTT, and for example, you take a Downtown Abbey, for example, the British show.
Yeah.
It is drama. It's very high quality, good quality drama. Period set inside a British royal manor kind of thing. But that doesn't have any criminal. That doesn't have any great hooky crime based hook. Their hooks are very emotional, very dramatic to do with characters, because they were made for long format television. It was not made as a crime show for OTT. But we consume it as an OTT show. It is available to us to watch on the OTT platform. There are several very good television shows from Europe and from North America, from Korea or wherever, which are not OTT shows, but they're not like original shows commissioned by, say, Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or whoever they're shows made for BBC, Sky Network, ABC. For example, there's a show called This Is Us. There was a show, HBO show. Now HBO produces some great content, So This Is Us was not a criminal-based show, but it was very popular. And people consumed it in a binge fashion. So it is not that always you need to be a crime show. But yes, original shows that are coming out of many countries today still rely very heavily on, if not crime, some kind of, you need a, what we call it, you need a, if it's a cake, then you need a sponge cake of some thrill element, some intrigue. And creating that through drama is tough. And we don't have too many shows which are original drama shows which have been back. Like for example, Game of Thrones. Now that's political. That was one of the early, it had everything in it. But House of Cards.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones had a lot of violence. It had everything. It was like, it had everything in it. But if you take a House of Cards, now House of Cards is a political thriller, but it's still a thriller. There were these elements of something happening.
Yeah.
It was not that blood and gore, but it was still had a thriller. So I would say more than crime, that thrillerish element, that some kind of mystery, some kind of hook is something that keeps people. Besides great characters, you need plots which are like hooky.
Yeah. The same works for news also. The newspaper, there's always, a crime story is actually read much more than a development story, which affects
There you
us.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But tell me something, is the Hindi film mainstream directors and actors still shy of the OTT, or have they adapted?
I think they have adapted. Today, and in that, the pandemic has played a huge role.
Yeah.
It's played a seriously huge role, because the movie industry today is limping back to normalcy. But for the scale of the industry and the number of people it employs and the number of films we make, it's taken a hit. And besides, even if the pandemic wouldn't have been there, of course, it would not have been, the transition wouldn't have been so swift and acceptance. And today, you have an Ajay Devgan who has come on a big star like Ajay Devgan is coming on a show, his promos are out. You have had Saif Ali Khan who's already been in it. You have a Bobby Deol who's already been in it. You have my show Ravina has come in. You have Madhuri Dixit coming in a few days time. You have had Sushmita Sen, and you are going to have a lot more other people who are already up and looking at the thing, because the the small screen has suddenly gotten very big.
Mhm.
So the budgets are also quite big, and scale is also quite big. So I think initially people did have that, like I mean, around 6-7 years back, I wrote this show called "It's Not That Simple." You know, that time, why only film people, even television people, like regular mainstream television people, like people like Crime Patrol and other shows that I was working on. Think, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this OTT? I mean, what is going to happen? Oh, but are they like those TV, skits? Are they like some kind of, at that time, the only thing that was more known were, these people used to make these spoofs and skits and 7-8 minutes, or you watch them on YouTube or you watch them on some,
Mhm.
so people didn't take it seriously. People didn't take it seriously. But slowly, when Netflix started and Hotstar started and Amazon, for instance, you had the Sacred Games and you had Family Man and you had Hotstar had their own shows and Criminal Justice and on Wood, It's Not That Simple did well, the one which I admitted. It was again not a criminal drama, it was entirely an adult drama. It was an adult relationship story, entirely. There was no criminal element in it. Uh, so then slowly things started picking up and interest started picking up, and now it's full fledged. I mean, all the big production houses, which from your T series to your Yashraj to your Dharma, all the big established commercial film studios, all are doing OTT shows. And initially the big stars were out of it, but now the big stars are in and with big budgets and big plans. So it won't be too long before we might see the biggest of stars, depending on the project. Depending on the project. Maybe the very top most untouchable big A-listers might still take a little longer, but I don't see why they wouldn't.
Just to repeat, I mean, you mentioned this, but just so that our audience, which are mostly students today, uh, get a hang of the fundamental difference between the OTT and the big screen and the TV. So we have three
Yeah. Okay.
genres, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if,
So yeah. So firstly, as I said, the first primary difference is of viewership, of the nature of consumption. Cinema is 2 hours. One off, you go engage for 2 hours. You know you are going to engage for 2 hours. At the most, you will, if you don't like a movie in a cinema hall, you might walk out. But otherwise, so psychologically, you have committed for 2 hours. Your body clock has prepared itself for the interval and that samosa and that coffee and popcorn, and then you're going to watch the movie and come out. And you have paid quite a high ticket price. That also is a very important aspect, that you have paid 250 bucks or whatever, 200 bucks nowadays anywhere in the country, even in smaller towns, 150 bucks, whatever. So that's the contract you have with the maker. You pay, you go in, you have that 2 hour thing, and you come out. Now the same thing it is if you are watching it on your OTT. Now today's day and age, the most big films have been watched on OTT platform. That is because of the pandemic. So it's a temporary thing. Once the pandemic tapers off,
huh,
I don't think big films make any sense to. I wouldn't go want to watch. I wouldn't want to watch a Pushpa on my or a Bahubali or whichever big film on a small screen. I would like to go and experience it. So that is one thing. The nature. Now let's look at OTT and mainstream television in our country. Our country television is mainly associated with soaps, and the target audience of soaps in our country tend to be primarily women and primarily homemakers who are afternoon slot or post dinner slot, which where where they see the maximum amount of viewership. And obviously we have names like Saas Bahu for them. I would just call them soap operas. They are very important. It's a very big component of the revenue generation in television. they play a very serious. I mean, sometimes we tend to be a little dismissive about it and almost consider it as a regressive, and all these labels get attached. So I think, but once you are in the trade and once you start working here and once you realize that they are fulfilling so many aspirations and so many emotional, incompletions and engagement and all that, it's a complex viewing. It's a complex viewing, and it is highly addictive. And it has its own grammar. They're mostly, as I said, one day, the time scale, the nature of the they tend to be mostly so tend to be women centric and tend to be homebound, the politics of home inside and there also today there are many changes happening, like mythologicals are coming in, genres are getting mixed up, horror and soap are mixing up. There's all kind of thing, mytho and present time horror, present time soaps are getting mixed up. People are trying various things to keep the women occupied, because the, there's this much you can do. After a point, people, it becomes too formalistic. Oh, we have seen this track before, let's see something different. So that's one thing. So the in television, mainstream television, that is the soap opera, you have audience, target audience is different, and the nature of the storytelling and the nature of stories are different. Like we see people, like when you, if you want to generalize that, you say in soap operas everybody is dressed up nicely and it's nicely lit up, and it's very proscenium theater kind of, Parsi theater kind of, like people are all standing and they say their dialogue, and you move into another room, and then some people even find it ridiculous and all that. But a large number of people who are engaging with have very serious life, they're very serious issues, there's suspension of disbelief, and they're partaking in the core of the story. The rest everything is just for their comfort zone. Like even in a Hindi film, we go and watch a Rohit Shetty film. We go there. People say, no, or David Dhawan film, what we call as, or a Rohit Shetty film. You obviously know what you're getting into, what you're signing up for, but you still go and enjoy it. You go there because you know it's not like you're going there to see a great social issue, or you are going to see some complex gray area human relationship. No, you're going there to see a formalistic template and yet have a laugh, yet clap, and like yet look at the beautiful women and the handsome men and get back to your life. Soaps are something like that. But in the OTT space, what a differentiator is the target audience. The OTTs are not targeting your the ladies who are watching the show, or the adult or the older people who are watching soap operas, or who are watching even certain kind of crime shows which have a larger female collection, or whatever. These are shows which are more modern. So the content of OTT shows tends to be different because you're addressing 16 to 25 or 30 years old. And in our country, that is the largest chunk of our population. We are a young nation. We have a very large young people's population. Lot of consumption is happening on mobile phones. So the nature of the stories that you pick for OTT will be different from what you will pick for a mainstream soap. You won't use that kind of trope in here, and you won't cross those lines. And here, what is it that there's an understanding, there's a new understanding of realism, that OTT shows are supposed to be real. Now let's get real on this. That since OTT shows have started, a lot of OTT shows have presumed that being real is filling your show with lots of gali galoch of swear words and a lot of sex and sexual content, because there's no censorship. Televisions are guided by censorship, films are guided by censorship. OTTs are not as yet, but we might be somewhere moving towards some kind of, it has been in the news about all that.
Yeah.
And also sometimes it has been stretched. Let's admit it. Like every time you see a show, because it's like, like you keep a dog on a leash, and in the evening when you take it out for a walk, you open it and it runs amok. It just goes crazy, your pup. So I mean, sometimes because of this freedom, it has. I think that sometimes, in some cases, the lines have been blurred. There's been a stretch of liberty. For example, when we wrote Aranyak, when I was writing Aranyak and when I was doing Aranyak, I was very consciously decided that we will not go down that path of swear words and sexual content. So if those who have seen, that has been a differentiator among as compared to many other shows, that we didn't have any kind of major sex scenes happening. Yes, it is an adult thing because it's a murder and it's criminal, but there was no what is called as in your face and definitely no gali galoch. And that has really helped us, because during the pandemic, a lot of people who are the in-between people who wanted to watch content other than daily soap, made their way to watching Arendelle because the children said, Mama, Mama, come, watch this show. You can watch this show on Netflix. Dadaji, Dadiji, come. Your Ravina Tandon is there. That also played a big part because Papa and Mummy were fans of Ravina Tandon. And they came and they saw, I think we can sit with the kids and watch this show because there is no, see, Indian families still are operating on one large television set in the house with a, with a fire stick or whatever. And then word of mouth, we started thinking, yeah, we like it because it is not regular television, it's a thriller, but there is also drama element involved. There's parenting issues involved. There are a lot of other sub themes involved which are closely connected with, you identify with certain things. As a parent, if a child is in distress, husband-wife relationship. So it was not sugar-coated. It was not goody-goody like it would be in the soap opera, but it was real. It was palatable. So they took to watching it, and now we realize that this also can work, and Netflix also has got its rates down. So
Right.
you have larger access of family audience. Hotstar anyway has a large section of large footprint of family audiences. So in the future, it's not going to be like OTT is only for youngsters, and television is for the oldies, and film is for whoever, it's for everybody. When you go and spend money, do dinner, and come out. Things have changed. Definitely, and the pandemic has played a role. So these are three basic differences that now even the stories being selected for OTT will have a slightly massy stories also. You will have more stories which are a little bit more accessible to larger audiences. You will continue to have niche, urban, what we call as the 5% thinking in English crowd, where you're actually writing the script in English and then you're translating into a regional language. That is also going to be there. What is almost like you have art house people will come in making it. So all of that will exist together, but the mainstream OTT show is arriving. Like you take a show like Rocket Boys. If anybody has seen Rocket Boys, is now a good historical story which has been adapted, and it is getting good traction. And it doesn't follow any of the tropes of a so-called OTT. Like those check boxes are not there.
Huh.
So it is working. So
Okay.
I think we'll have different kinds of storytelling, different kind of stories coming up, and it's R&D. It's work in progress. Right now, this platform is work in progress.
Okay. Okay. You were a writer director for Sonali Cable, I
Yeah,
think 2014, which was a kind of a global film because it was done through a evaluation process of submissions from around the world, I'm told, which included many countries. You also worked with an actor, Ali Fazal. But I was more interested in knowing about your association with Ramesh and Rohan. Is the Sholay Hangover still over, or do they still live with that? Because
no,
once I remember many years ago meeting him, and he said that was a problem of them coming out of.
yeah, I wouldn't be able to say much on that because they are very much hands-on producers, and see, I've known them for some years now, like almost 12 years. I've been working. I started off by doing dialogue. I used to. I had collaborated with the screenwriter of his name is Sridhar Raghavan. He wrote the screenplay for Dhammarodham, and he's a screenplay writer. And he asked me to come in to do dialogue in Hindi, and that's how I got into the. I met Rohan for the first time and Ramesh for the first time, and that's where our association started. And before that, they had some successful films like Taxi Number 911 and Bluff Master. They had done well. So it's a pretty much established production house with also television. Ramesh has created the Sholay of television. If you go to see Bunyad, which
Yeah.
is which was really good television. Adaptation. Manohar Shah Joshi, great writing, great performance, epic story, partition saga. And now they were making this movie that I got into writing that dialogue for that thing. And then we also developed a friendship. I had known they're almost the same age. We became friends. And then I had this story. So what had happened was this Sonali Cable story was something that had. So Sundance had started its lab in India that time. They were asking for script. So I had just applied thinking that, lab is always good because you have good mentors. People read your script. They give you feedback. So I applied and then it made it to the final and I got selected in that lab. I had some really great international mentors. And then after that, I approached Rohan and told him that, see, this has gone to the lab, and he knew about it. And before even I had gone to the lab, we had kind of loosely signed on to do the film together. He liked the story, so we thought we'll do it. And I also wanted. I had not directed long format because I trained in directing in FTI, but
Hmm.
after just I'd started off as assistant director on a couple of films, but then I met with this accident, the terrible accident, which kept me away from physically, gave me a lot of difficulties in directing. So I actually took to writing. And after a few years, I got this fellowship because I wrote a lot in television, and I got a couple of awards and industry awards. Also, I got this fellowship which you had mentioned in the beginning. So I had continued my writing work. I continued to work as a writer, but I always wanted to get back to directing. And so then he kind of said, "Okay, you direct." You know. So before that, there was a series which we were doing, and which I just, what we in Hindi, what we call as "Haath Saaf Karna." Like you have not done something for some time, you have learned it, but so all your screws and just the directorial what is the muscle exercising. So I did some bit of that show, and then I made the movie. It was a good experience, lot of learning happening, things which you will learn in school, things which you will learn in classrooms will help you, and then there's something you cannot learn in the classroom and you cannot learn in the you learn on the set. There's an industry to negotiate. There are actors, there is budgets, all of that. It was a good experience. The film unfortunately didn't do too well because of various reasons. Because there was, like, the other releases. It was a small film, modest, very very small budget film with not any great stars then. Like Ali was also relatively new. Rhea Chakravarti was almost launching. So all of that was there, but it was a good experience, and I look forward to directing again. I have not directed for the last couple of years after the Only Cable because I've just been caught up with writing assignments. So there's always enough writing work to do. So I keep saying, okay, this year now, after this, I'll get back to my script, the other, which is like still in my folder, and I start pitching it, but it's just not happened. Like I've just been writing away. So
You
hopefully this year,
mentioned you
yeah,
mentioned Riya Chakravarti and of
yeah,
course the whole Sushant Singh Rajput and the Riya Chakravarti episode really uh, went awry. I mean, it went ugly. But what is your take on this entire cancel culture in the showbiz industry and this whole thing that worked moved
that's very
around?
unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. I can't. I really I don't have a yeah, I think people should just take things for what they are. Let law take its own course. And there's a lot of I think because of social media and the way even mainstream media portrays things and the way people react, and everybody's equipped with your whatever, you have a internet connection, you have a social media account, and then you are like trigger happy in a way. You're
Yeah,
trigger happy, and all these things take their toll, and people, and you sometimes, like, even if you take things like trolling, if you take things, all these things, it's very unfortunate, and I think we have to grow out of it consciously. I mean, if it needs legislations, it needs change of public behavior, it needs laws. It can get very ugly, and and a beautiful medium like social media can become a hellish experience for a lot of people. So I don't subscribe to these kind of things, and then the rumor mongering and the kind of really terrible things that happen is something I really feel it's very unfortunate, and it has to change because today you are the troll, tomorrow you can be on the other end and have these things are not permanent. Cancel culture goes in all kinds; it permeates into all societies, all ideologies, all kind of things, and bullying is also there, and all of it. So I think it's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
great. I'll ask the audience on watching on the YouTube live stream. Please type in your questions, and um, the team is going to pass me on the questions, which I'm going to put on, and also our students on the show out here on the Zoom. If you have any questions, please raise your hand while I ask Charu another question. Prepare your question, guys. You mentioned about the accident, Charu. I'm sure that that has been a turning point in your life because you say you at somewhere you mentioned you called yourself a writer by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hit and run case. I'm told, and you said that a hit can happen for a variety of reasons, but when there's a run, then there are
Yeah.
you know, how has that changed your view of the industry, or how do you view the industry from
No,
what happened to
no,
you?
no, no. My accident had nothing to do with the industry per se. No, it was an unfortunate incident. I was a young man. I was 28 years old, just getting into my career, just out of film school, a couple of years after film school, and uh, so it was. So yeah, it was a hit and run case, and of course, it took me a long time to heal because of various reasons. It was a complicated accident. So it changed. I won't say about the industry. I was working in the industry, and then fortunately, I got writing work, and I could continue to be a writer, and I had a career. Fortunately, and also because I had some friends or colleagues who were already working, and they would help. Actually, like even when I was in hospital, I was in and out of hospitals. I used to get these small. Also, just write this one episode. My friends who were writers, used to come and give me some writing work, so that I can pay my bill. They were very kind, and that also I made some real friends at that point of time. People who came out and they, without making me conscious of the difficulties and all that, they gave me work to do, which I could do sitting. And so that was one thing. I won't say about the industry as such, because they see there are people with all kinds of handicaps in the industry. Like every working mother also is in a way is so tied. Like in our industry, we have so many women who are managing a home, who are managing their work, and so many things together. So everybody has some or the other, if for lack of another proper word, I say a handicap, or something that holds you back physically, emotionally, mentally, socially.
Challenges.
Challenges, yeah, not a handicap. That's the wrong word. I take that back. Let's put it challenges there. So if there are challenges there, so having a physical handicap and or a challenge for a long time did I mean I was unable to pursue my directorial goal. But see, I was a young man, and for some time I used to get a little frustrated. Like why am I not healing? And there's so much of expenses, and I have a family. Just started a family. But this is just for our students and younger viewers. You see, as we said, a shift will happen. It will. A lot of us will suddenly have these things happening to you in life, but somehow you need to get out of it. At the end of it, it's your personal battle, and in the to navigate the film industry, it is not going to look at what are your problems, what are your illnesses, what are your situations. If you're working in television, on Wednesday the script has to be on the table. If you are working in film, you have to come up with a good script. You have to land up on the set, and the industry is inclusive actually. And there's a lot of flack the industry faces, but the industry can be inclusive. It does not discriminate really. That it can but your passion and your hard work and your what you put out there, all the good practices you do, it may not be appreciated initially, but eventually it will. Eventually, you will get your due when you keep working consistently, because there is no other way. I mean, we can until we can keep arguing that about nepotism, and we can keep arguing about casting couch, and we can keep arguing about plagiarism and this and that. But is it going to change things? No, we have to do it ourselves. What you feel right, keep at it. It's a struggle. It can be daunting. It can be very difficult initially, but our industry is so big today. We need people,
Hmm.
writers, directors, technicians, editors, I mean, look at the scale of the industry. Look at the number of OTT platforms. Again, there are new ones being launched every 6 months. People are talking about new ones. So youngsters should not come in with any kind of cynical or preconceived notion that, oh, this is how it's going to be in the industry. This is a place which is full of, oh, no, it's not that. You find your niche. You decide what you want to do, and put in those long, hard man hours. Start putting them in. Improve your craft, keep at it, and then the doors will open. One foot into the door, then you can take it away. But one of the most important thing is to be resilient. You have to have patience.
There's
And
already a
that's what I
question
learned.
from someone called Prabal Pratap Singh on YouTube, who is asking that how satisfied were you after the movie Nautanki Salah was made? What did you think when you got to know that Ayushmann Khurrana was being cast, who was new to the industry then?
Nautanki Salah, I I was one of the dialogue writers and extra additional dialogue writer. It is not a project that I was very much invested in. I mean, it's an adaptation of a French film. They had bought the official rights. The producer had bought the official rights and then remade it. And it was fun. I'm not a very much of a comedy person, but on that film, I wrote some of the dialogues, and it was fun. I loved attending the shoot. And Ayushman is a great guy. Really, really, really. How do I say? He's so hardworking. I mean, I've seen him closely, right from table readings to the shoot. So really great guy. When I met him, and that time I think I'm not very sure. I think Vicky Donor was already out. He was a known name. It was not that he was a complete right newcomer. So he had been cast because of Vicky Donor, most probably. I don't remember now the cast, but he was a great guy to work with. The final product, well, all films come. There were some things that you like, some things that didn't work. Like any movie you take, you'll always find you expect during a shoot you think that oh this scene is going to really work, and then maybe that scene doesn't work, but some other scene really fires because the magic of the whole thing happens on the editing table. When you go into the editing room, that's when you. So again, just as an aside, if there are any screenwriters, aspiring screenwriters who think that they should, if you more than the set, no, you should be spending time in an editing room. This is just a little whatever advice to all aspiring screenwriters that spend time in an editing room and spend time in an acting class or in a theater group. So these are two areas where you understand performance and you understand an edit. Shoots, obviously, I mean, but these are really good areas. So with Ayushman, it was a good experience working with him. And yeah, I would say I liked the film. I mean, it was a little niche. It was not like out there, but it all like some films are hit, some films are not that successful.
Yeah. Zahan Hussain, who is on the show out here, please, you can switch on your video and ask a question.
Good evening, Mr. Acharya. I was just
Hi,
curious.
hi,
To
Zahan.
know,
Hi,
hi,
Zahan.
I was just curious to know about your overall writing process and how you approach it. I mean, do you start off with a major outline, or do you just dive into it head first? Because I know there are some writers that like to outline everything meticulously, and some of them that
Yeah,
just
I am the
directly.
former. I am the former. I am the former. See, I come from television. Predominantly, my work is in television. So we have to be very disciplined out there. It's the work, writing work is demarcated very, it's into compartments. Like you have a story writer in television, you have a screenplay writer, and you have a dialogue writer. Very seldom all three are done by one person. So so whenever I have done story or having said that, for OTT shows also, I have to outline, I have to create a roadmap. So I go from like germ of idea, write a two, 3 pager, what we call as a pitch document, with a log line and your ideas on it, a basic plot, basic characters. Then take it step by step. Where do you want to divide? If it's a series, for example, so it's a 7 episode, 8 episode. So then you write a 8 to 10 page story of the whole series. Just write it in prose, like what we call as a treatment in films. We write treatments, right, in films, like it is a prose written in present time with a little bit of giving you an idea of the genre, giving the idea of the kind of world, but a prose story told as the story would narrate, unfold. You may not, you may indicate structure, you may not, and then you get into detailing of structuring, outlining. For me, it is very important that I have all these things in place so that I can enjoy my screenplay without thinking that oh I'm stuck in plot. Oh, why did my characters come like this? Now I'm stuck because it leads for me. It takes me longer time to go and undo, go back. So I prefer to do it in chunks. Like do your act one or do your outlining first. Even when you're writing an episode, now first write all the acts, act points, act breaks, and then the actual screenplay, the actual scenes, the dialogue. Have fun with it because your other things are sorted. It's like cooking, no? When you're cooking, when you're making a meal. If anybody here is interested in cooking, but I always give the analogy to students. But if you're prepped, if you have chopped your vegetables, if you have got your temperature right, if you have got your oil right, everything is neat and clean, then you have cleaned up all the other things. Now you just need to make that biryani or make that fried rice or make whatever. It's a pleasure because you know that, okay, now in 10 minutes my work is going to be done. But sometimes it might not be that way. You might then suddenly change the recipe, but still you know what ingredients you're working with. So I would
Right.
say,
Thank you.
yeah, I do prep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gaurang Agarwal. Gaurang, which school are you in?
Professor, I'm from JSJC.
Okay, go ahead, ask your question.
Hello, Acharya.
Hi.
My My question to you is, you studied your undergrad from FTI, right?
Actually, it's a postgrad. I mean,
postgrad.
after you finish your undergrad, it's a 3-year diploma. Like in the West, you would have an MFA kind of thing. So this is, they don't call it a MFA, but it's a 3-year full-time program after you finish your BA or a BSc or whatever you.
Yeah.
Gaurang, it's a postgraduate degree, okay?
Yeah.
A postgraduate diploma, not an undergraduate. Yeah,
Sorry.
what's your question?
So my question to you was, it has bred some of the most well-known names in the industry, such as Om Puri,
Yeah.
to name a few, to name someone.
Yeah.
So have you ever felt intimidated or worried that you're studying from such prestigious institution, that will you be successful in the future? Were you worried at the time?
Yeah. See, the time, it depends on the era in which you were in FTI. FTI started in the 60s and 70s. That time, it definitely catered more to what we can call as art house, or catered more, somewhat more to more serious cinema, if you want to call it. It was not geared. It was not made as a training school for Bollywood. It was meant for supporting regional and independent cinema. But a lot of the best of technicians, editors, cameramen would find employment in the industry, be absorbed right away. The people who had a little bit of difficulty were the directing students. Like I was a directing student, but by the time I was there, it's up to you. You know that you have been trained in the craft. What you take up in the industry is what you. Yeah. So if you're in those times, if you're choosing to go down the independent cinema way, then even if you go to film school or don't go to film school, it would be intimidating, because raising funds is difficult. Finding a market, audience, all of that would be difficult. But finding employment and getting a foot into the door was never a problem. In fact, FTI or any film school, today your school or tomorrow Jama Millia, SRFTI, what happens is when you go to school, there's a network that gets created. So your initial foot into the door does land up a little easier than just landing up from a small town with knowing nobody. So you will have some senior who will say, okay, you come and assist over here. So at least you don't realize what a big opportunity it is. It may not be greatly paying or whatever, but you are on a set. You are getting a stipend. You're on. You are in the industry. Then you build up. So there's no need to feel intimidated ever.
Amaya, do you have a question?
Yes, I have 3 questions actually. Should I go one by one or all at
Oh,
once?
yeah, no.
Okay.
Tell all 3. Let's see.
Okay, so I read that you used to work for a non-profit organization called Going to School, and where you wrote like children's stories and skits for radio, I think.
Yeah.
So how did you come into doing this? Was there any particular source of inspiration? And also, most importantly, how did you find the time in such a busy schedule?
See, I don't remember how I going to school. I had a friend who was doing some work with going to school, and so they were looking to create media. See, I had also worked a little bit in Gully Gully Sim Sim, which is a Sesame Street Hindi version.
Right. Yeah.
So I right now I don't even recall how I got in touch with going to school, but a friend of mine was doing some work and she said, would you like to do? And I just felt that they were trying to do something interesting, they were trying to do something to create media, short films and things. So just out of, sometimes you feel like whatever you're doing, but many times you're doing work which is very commercial, you're doing it for the money, sometimes you're doing it for your livelihood or whatever, it's a profession. But if you can use the same skills that you have for something that is a little bit more socially helpful in some way, in a concrete way, like if you can use your writing skills or directing skills or cinematography skills in making some kind of content which can help something. At least I personally like doing it, so I participated with them. I wrote a few short films. I wrote a radio thingy for them. So it was that's how I just did it because I just wanted to use my skills for something other than making my own living.
All right. And also, how does screenwriting differ from any other sort of writing? For like instance, journalism. Is it like if you're a good writer, can you get into screenwriting, or is there something more to it?
See, the primary difference is nobody reads screenplays. If you're a journalist, somebody is going to read what you wrote. If you're a novelist, somebody is going to read your book. You'll be known as for that. You give your book, you write a short story, you write a great article. That's the final product. but nobody is reading my screenplay. People are watching a movie or a show made out of my screenplay. So it is a blueprint. A screenplay is a blueprint on which you build. You know, it's like a skeleton on which the whole. So that's a fundamental difference in the writing, and it's a lot of technical writings. You know, contrary to a lot of people, you know, you don't write. You're writing for the cinema screen. There are rules. There are rules when you write. You know, one page is a minute of a formatted thing. Second thing is you don't write to display your writing, your language skills. Those are displayed in your dialoguing, but you have to be very economical when you write. You can't write with you know, flourish. No, you write because there are 8 or 10 departments which have to interpret what you have written. There is money being assigned to every line you write. You write interior. You know, if you're setting a scene in, say, interior cafe in Paris, in a novel, you can navigate from Paris to Patiala in 1 second. It's all in your head. But when you write a scene in Paris and the next you write it in Patiala, you can imagine what the producer, when he's reading, oh, okay, Paris. Oh, okay, Patiala. So then the costume designer, the cinematographer, each person reading that script is seeing a film in his head. The producer is seeing a film and a budget and many, many things. An actor is seeing scenes. What's my part? How much am I in it? So the people who are reading the script are people from the people who are going to put flesh and blood and stuff into it. So that's a fundamental difference. And yes, if you're a good storyteller, if you're a good shot, you can give a shot at screenwriting. Why not? You should give it a shot. You should try it.
All
There are
right.
some rules. You can read a few books and you can watch a few movies and you can just go ahead and do it.
All right, thank you. And my last question is, so you talked about quote unquote realism in OTT platforms, and you like gave an analogy of a dog on a leash, which I'm assuming is why you, in a way, self-censored Aranya.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know what your opinion would be on government-imposed censorship.
No, I'm not a fan of. I don't subscribe to any form of. See, governments will have. I mean, in a complex country like ours, with so many, you know, what we can call it, they're on hot coal, you know, everywhere, all around. There is so much of issues and so. So yes, we would like as makers and storytellers, we would all love to have absolute freedom and no interference and nothing of that sort. But we all somewhere down the line need to understand that it is a complex society. There are a lot of issues which many times you know can go out of hand, and so I don't think there should be government censorship, but I said within the industry we should formulate some kind of understanding. And I honestly, at this point of time, I don't have a very clear cut formed view on this. But definitely having a censor board, the film censor board itself is a battle because it's the way it exists. I'm saying that guidelines and rules can be, you know, I like the rating system better. If certain things are of a certain nature, you rate them. It's not just you A and A. You can give an R. We can have different rating systems, and certain things you must probably, you know, there are courts if people have issues. But having strict censorship from the government is not going to help in this. I don't subscribe.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Charu. You know, we are almost out of time. I mean, I don't know whether my students have informed you that we are actually starting a program, an undergraduate program in film and new media
Okay.
out
Great.
here at OP Jindal Global University, and I hope we'll meet more often, and you know, want you to be associated with it, and we'll pick your brains as well. But
Sure.
my last question to you is that, you know, that if Charu Dutt were to make a film on Charu Dutt, then what would be the story?
So you'll spend half the film you'll spend on a table and a kitchen. I am a homebound person. I'm quite active on Facebook. I do a lot of writing, short story writing on Facebook. So I don't think I have a very eventful life to film. But yeah, I have, you know, there's somebody who I don't know who said it, that to, you know, like sometimes it is very important to be ordinary and organized in your life as an artist so that you can be brutal in your work. So I kind of follow that. I sleep at 10 o'clock, get up at 5 o'clock, write in the mornings. So I'm a good boy like that. So good boys don't make good stories.
I'm sure that is a story. Because the other thing that and on that note, we will end, is that we believe at this school, and I also, I've been a career journalist all my life. At the heart of whether it's a OTT, whether it's a TV, whether it's a film, whether it's a journalistic piece, news, long format, short format, a novel, short story, it is the story which is at the heart of it. I mean, without a story, nothing of this is going to exist. So, and I hope that you also, I'm sure you will agree with that. That how important it is to tell the story.
And formats will change, technology will change, but the way human beings engage with stories is a very primal. The way it's something that has come to us. It's there inside our inside our blood. The way, the need and hunger for stories to make sense of the insanity around us, or the the way the world functions. So I think stories make our lives much better. They calm us down, and they give us a lot of hope, and they give us thrills also, whatever. But stories should not be taken lightly.
Thank you so much, Charu. Hope to meet you again. And
Thanks.
This is a student production. So thanks to the student production team. And see you, the people who have been watching it. See you next week, same time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye. All the best to everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Hello. Hello. Yes, dear.